Hey there everybody, how's it going? Nice to see you again. Thanks for coming out today. So, it's October and that means that the light is turning very colorful and the leaves are all golden and orange and reds and blues and the world has just gotten very colorful. And for me that means it's time to try out the Pentax K3 Mark III monochrome black and white only camera. Full disclosure, paid full price for it. And I got a 30-day return window, and if it does what I think it might do, and it does something, it's something I can use, I'm going to keep it. And if it doesn't do what I want it to do, and it won't fulfill a need for me, I'm just going to send it back. So I'm just trying this camera because it piqued my curiosity, and all the reviews on it was really kind of hard to get a straight answer. It seems like it'll do what it needs to do, but we'll get into that. So this is my initial impressions video. Like I said, you all know I've always had a bag full of Pentax lenses. So this is the Tamron 17 to 50 2.8, which I don't think they sell anymore, and it's an extremely sharp lens. I got some really great work with this lens back in the day, about 10 years ago. So I know it's up to snuff, and I know it's capable of great results. So this is my initial impressions video so far, and what I want to do is I want to A/B test the K3 monochrome versus the Fuji 40 megapixel color sensor camera. And I'm really curious. People say that the monochrome camera, some of the reviews I saw said the monochrome sensor camera has a more film-like tonality and rendering, and it's about 30% better. Well, that made me wonder, like, okay, so if the 40 megapixel sensor Fuji camera has 30% more pixels, are they comparable? Now, one thing I will say, my digital black and white photography for a long time, my wife even has made the comment, it looks like a newspaper. It looks like newspaper photos. It's all grayscale. It's not really black and white like my film work can be, okay? And I've kind of noticed that too. So, so I saw some images, I think it was Mike Muzzebelt or something, I totally murdered that name, but he's a Dutch photographer, and he A/B'd the K3 Mark III color camera, converted to black and white, you know, with the in Photoshop, and he had an image where he had a image from this camera, and I saw the difference clearly. Like, that's what I'm looking for. So the bottom line is this is a very, very niche camera, and what that means is it's a one-hit wonder. It does one thing. It does black and white photography. The question is, does it do it so much better that it justifies using it and having it and paying the money and the premium for it? And that's where I'm coming from, right? So how much better is it to shoot a monochrome sensor camera straight out of the box versus shooting a 40 megapixel Fuji X-Trans sensor and then converting it to black and white either in camera or in DxO? And so that's what I'm on about. So initial impressions. So right out of the box, the camera is now made in Vietnam. I don't remember that with the K3 Mark III I had a year or two ago. I believe that was made in the Philippines. So that was my impression. That's what I seem to remember. So I think that they moved production from the Philippines to Vietnam. As long as the quality's there, I don't really care. I mean, ultimately, I'd like a Japanese company to make their cameras in Japan, but that's just, you know, a personal preference of mine. Does it really make much of a difference? No, not really. So cameras made in Vietnam, and I will also tell you this: if this was 10 years ago, and my eyesight was the way it was 10 years ago, where I didn't need reading glasses to see up close, I would not be shooting a mirrorless camera. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. It's been about a year or so since I've looked through a SLR viewfinder and actually used the DSLR with a viewfinder on it, and I could tell right away I really prefer it. It's just a real pain to have to put your glasses on and take them off again, which I do have to do with this camera, much more so than I do with the mirrorless cameras. So, but I love the SLR viewfinder. I have to decide, it's a little bit of an inconvenience. I just have to decide if that's how much of an inconvenience. Again, if this camera follows through on the promise of the increased tonality and the more film-like rendering, if it's the only way I can get that, then it might be worth putting up with this camera, putting up with an SLR viewfinder, etc., etc. But again, it may be worth putting up with an SLR viewfinder just because I much prefer it compositionally. Okay, having said all that, I absolutely love the Pentax ergonomics. I've had this camera about 2 hours now, and it took me about a half an hour to go through all the menu settings. Absolutely stunning, really fantastic. There are a few holes though nowadays, because the new cameras like the XH2 and the X-T5, Fuji's been really adding stuff to them to fill it, to make them completely, like whatever you want to do, however you want to set the camera up for your personal preferences, at least my personal preferences, I can change it, I can set it up the way I want it. Pentax was always really good about that. An omission in this camera, unless I'm just being dense and I forgot how to do it, but I'm not sure. There's no aspect ratios. So I can't like preview in live view on the back LCD a square crop, all right? I shoot a lot of square these days, and I would like to do that with this. Also, I noticed that the grid choices that you have for the viewfinder, there's none that kind of will show me what a square is. They're kind of squeezed in, or they got diagonals in them, and that's all well and good. But so far, and again, I only had this camera 2 hours, it's kind of hard to figure out how to shoot a square and kind of preview it without just totally guessing or leaving extra edges on the sides. So there is that. So I find that to be an omission. Button-wise, like, yeah, Pentax is awesome. They've got a button for shake reduction, which is, you know, the IBIS, and that's wonderful. That is a problem on the Fuji cameras. I'm always looking to figure out, because I have it in different places on the X-T5 versus the XH2. So, and like when I'm on a tripod, I want to turn the IBIS off. When I'm not on a tripod, I leave the IBIS off most of the time, but sometimes I want to turn it on in a hurry, and looking for a button to turn it on, or looking for the, is it in the Q menu? Did I assign it to a custom function? I don't do it all the time. But now the K3 Mark III and the K3 Monochrome have a dedicated button for shake reduction. That's pretty cool. So other than that, those are my first impressions. My plan is to shoot identical images relatively in the same light within seconds, you know, minutes of each other. And then we'll be able to see the tonality of a converted to black and white color photograph versus a monochrome sensor. Lenses are comparable. The 16 to 55 Fuji XF lens, red badge lens, is a great lens. This Tamron lens, I know it's a good lens. Is it as good as the 16 to 55? Yeah, it's comparable. The 16 to 55 I think would be a little bit better. It's more modern, that's for sure. But 26 megapixels, 40 megapixels. I didn't explain it, so let me really quickly give you the Reader's Digest version. Why a monochrome sensor? Well, all digital sensors are monochrome. They're all black and white. All they do is measure quantity of light. They don't measure the quality, the color of the light. So what your digital color camera is doing is, you know, you've got your pixels, and then in front of the pixels, there's a filter. So either a red, blue, green, or green. So, and that's it. It's red, green, blue, green, red, green, blue, green. So there's 50% green, 25% red, 25% blue in a typical Bayer sensor. The Fuji, the math's a little different. It's like, you know, whatever it is. So, and that's an approximation. It's similar, okay? Just know that there's more green than there is red or blue, okay? So that's a colored filter in front of the sensor. So if the pixel that has a green filter in front of it isn't picking up any green light, you're getting a 0 reading there, okay? And or a subdued, whatever. So what you need to know is that filter, the colored filter in front, is limiting the amount of light. Now the point is the computer in the camera knows which pixel is filtered by what color, and so it knows that location, whatever the luminosity of that location is, that's supposed to be green, okay? And then the computer interpolates all that information and demosaics and turns it into a color photograph. It really is a miracle, and it's probably alien technology from Roswell, but if somebody really actually figured that out and it wasn't backwards engineered, like, they're a lot smarter than I am. And how they figured out how to get, 40 million pixels and to know what color they are and to demosaic them, I mean, that's just brilliant. But understand what you're doing there, okay? You're telling the computer what color that spot's supposed to be, then the computer's saying how much light let in, and the computer's saying, okay, so that's how much green we've got. And then that's how much blue we've got and how much red we've got. And then the computer turns it into color, okay? Well, the computer also has to interpolate all that and guess what it's supposed to look like in black and white, all right? With a monochrome sensor, the computer doesn't have to do that because it's yes or no, black or white, okay? And all it's saying is it's removing. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is with a color sensor, you're converting it to color and then you're converting it back to black and white, and you're losing a lot in the translation, all right? With a monochrome sensor, it starts out as monochrome and it stays monochrome. So there's a lot less computing and there's no interpolation. I mean, there is, but there's not this, you know, running it through two different conversions to get to your final product. In theory, that should make for some really great black and white, okay? How great is the question? What am I looking for? Well, I'm looking for the tonality. I've kind of seen it in the reviews online, in some of the photographs, but I saw enough of it. There was enough of a potential there, so it was worth it for me to give it a shot. This might be a camera that I could love, okay? Because I love black and white. I've been a black and white film shooter for years, and yeah, and darkroom printer, etc. I've taught college classes on darkroom printing, okay? So I know what I'm looking for. I know what I'm doing, all right? And digital has always left me a little cold with my black and white. I've never really been satisfied. Big potential here. And so why is this Pentax niche camera like even on my radar? Well, because it's $2,200, okay? Which is expensive for what it is, but if it does what it promises, if it does what it says on the tin, it's worth every penny. Because the only other choice you got going on that's even close is the Leica M10, M11, which used is probably $8 grand. I mean, new they're like $10,000. So, okay, two more quick first impressions. First of all, Pentax has the best battery doors in the business, as compared to like Nikon, which isn't even spring-loaded. The Pentax battery door, not only is it spring-loaded, but it's got that Leica twist and turn lock with a little lever to pull it out. You don't even need to pull it out though, because it's spring-loaded. Best battery doors in the business, except for maybe Leica. Okay. Second thing is, just for people to, so you know, the K3 Mark III and the K3 Mark III monochrome all use the L brackets and L plates going all the way back to the K7, which was probably about 13 or 14 years ago. So, plus they use the same battery. So backwards compatibility is fantastic. The SEPA battery rating on this camera is something like 800, which means that you're probably never going to run your battery down. I mean, it's probably good for a weekend to a week, but I'll let you know how it goes. So, okay, those were two things I wanted to add in terms of first impressions Really cool. As everyone else has commented, you know, the little touches with the silver SR and the Pentax in gray and everything being black and white and gray, really cool. That's really cool. So there's two kinds of cool. There's what it does, and the second kind of cool is, you know, it's just cool because it is. Well, this has got second kind of cool in gobs, all right? My question is does it have first kind of cool? Can it do something no other camera can do? Can it get me that film-like rendering and tonality in a digital camera? So off we go. So in using the K3 Mark III monochrome, and this would apply to the regular K3 Mark III as well, the two criticisms that I would have is the lack of aspect ratios, because I'd like to see a JPEG crop to 1:1. That would be awesome. Or even grid lines that would give me a 1:1. That's all I need, is just so I can compose in 1:1. But I can work around that. I guess it's better than the Nikon implementation where it crops the RAWs, which would be, I'd rather just not have it at all, then I can crop later, than to throw the information away and then I have no choice. So, but 1:1 aspect ratio would be nice. I'd like to see 4:5 and 3:4, and there's no reason why these cameras can't do that. Now that we're up to 26 megapixels. And the other major criticism, which everybody makes about the K3 Mark III, the lack of any kind of a tilt screen or articulating screen, because the live view is actually quite useful. I tend to compose on the live view and then fine tune with the viewfinder when I'm using it for a landscape camera. And the lack of an articulating screen of any kind, I mean, it's a fixed screen, that's it, is a major problem, is a drawback. Some people, Pentax sells this ref converter, which fits on the hot shoe, fits on the viewfinder lugs, because the Pentax has been using the same viewfinder style since the Pentax ME Super and probably before that, back into 1975, or maybe even before that. So you can get a right angle finder. So if I was really going down low, whatever, that might be, but that's really a band-aid. That's a workaround. That's not the same thing as having some kind of a tilting screen. So yeah, okay, I beat that to death. This is my setup here, my famous rock that I've photographed a lot. It's really good for this kind of stuff. It's good for testing stuff. And I've done some shots with the K3. Now I'm going to replicate those shots on the XH2, and we'll see where we end up. All right, so we're back in the office now, and I've had a chance to print out a few of those images and look at them on the screen in pixel peep, and let's just cut right to the chase, okay? You need to understand what I'm talking about, though, in the sense that I need to quantify it. Black and white photography for art's sake is about that last few percent of quality. Right? I mean, there's the difference between competent black and white and art black and white is 1 or 2%. It's not much. It's like a golf score. You know, the difference between winning the Masters and placing in the Masters is a couple of strokes, right, in golf. So it's that last little percentage that makes all the difference. Okay, having said that, that's where we are with the K3 Mark III monochrome. That's what a monochrome sensor does for you. It's the difference between flying a really, really sophisticated level D flight simulator and actually flying an airplane. Okay? It's the difference between a computer simulation and the real thing. All right? And it's subtle. But maybe you were able to see it in those images I put up on YouTube. Hard to judge. Let me put this down. But when I look at the prints I made, and you're never going to be able to see them on YouTube, but you know, one's Fuji and one, it's the differences are subtle. Okay, I've only made two prints. There's this one, which I haven't shown you, and then there's this one, which I did show you. These are the example ones. Okay, and the Fuji is good, and I would be pleased with the Fuji if I hadn't seen what the Pentax did, what the monochrome sensor did. And so that really creates some high quality problems for me, in the sense that, like, 50% plus of my work is black and white. Maybe it's more like 60, 70%, maybe 80%. Like, I much prefer black and white. I've been hanging on to film just because the digital black and white has never really satisfied me. When you convert the color sensor into a black and white image, and the monochrome sensor gets me to where I want to be. It's got that film rendering. It's got that tonality. It's got that smoothness. So let's talk about it. Tonality wise, it reminds me of T-Max on a Hasselblad. It's that kind of tonality. All right. So it's real black and white. It's the real gradations. It's the micro tonality. You know, people talk about micro contrast. That became a big buzz thing, and I get it. Well, that's what I got with film, and that's what I'm getting with the monochrome sensor. It's that nth degree more that kicks it up from competent black and white to, like, yeah, I can make art with this. That's what I'm seeing, and it only took one image. Like, the first image I saw, it's like, so the bottom line is there a difference between a black and white, a monochrome only a sensor, or, you know, without the color filtration, versus a color sensor with the color filter? Yes, you can see it immediately. Okay, so in terms of the tonality, it's got a film-like tonality. Honestly, after seeing this, I don't care to shoot with a color sensor and convert to black and white anymore. If I'm going to shoot black and white, it's going to have to be a monochrome sensor. It's that good. I mean, it really is. And I don't say that lightly, because it creates a lot of problems for me. High quality problems, but if I want to shoot black and white, it's going to have to be that monochrome sensor or film. I mean, it really comes down to that. Okay, so in terms of sharpness, 26 megapixels versus 40 megapixels, yeah, the monochrome sensor, I would say, is a hair sharper. The resolution is a hair better. So take that for what it's worth. I mean, the 40 megapixel Fuji sensor in color was already at full frame levels with DxO processing. So now I'm comparing non-processed images here. These are JPEG straight out of camera. So if the Pentax JPEG straight out of camera is better than the Fuji, is sharper than the Fuji, like, well, maybe DxO processing could take the Fuji RAW and make it better. I don't know, but again, you know, the point is I'm getting straight out of the camera better than what I can get straight out of the camera with the Fuji. You know, maybe I can get the same thing with the Fuji with, you know, but again, the tonality with the Fuji is a computer simulation, and I can see it, and when you A/B them, you can see it clearly. And so now that I know that there's a $2,200 monochrome camera out there, and it's affordable and I can afford it, like, yeah, I want to shoot with that for my black and white. Again, that creates problems. So tonality is a home run. Sharpness is way beyond expectations. Contrast is you have complete control over it with the hard, soft, and standard. So it's still, you know, first impressions, but in terms of first, I mean, clearly the monochrome sensor is a different animal. Okay, and I think, you know, the thing that really sums it up for me is, now that I've seen what it can do, like, I don't want to shoot black and white on a color sensor camera anymore. We're really talking about the nth degree here, though. So if you're a casual black and white shooter, you know, buy the K3 monochrome if it's something that interests you and you think it might be fun, and you have the means and the necessary capital to invest in it. But if you are a black and white shooter and you shoot more than 50 or 60% of your work in black and white, and I don't care if you have a full frame camera or not, I'll tell you right now, this monochrome sensor APS-C is going to blow away any full frame camera that's a color sensor converted to black and white. Like Leica's onto something, and Pentax is onto something too. So a couple other things. First of all, everybody's like, well, why didn't they do the GR3 in black and white? Or why didn't they do the K1 in black and white? As I understand it, I don't know this positively, but as I understand it, the sensor in the K3 Mark III, the Sony sensor that Pentax is using, already had a monochrome version that Sony made for astrophotography cameras. That's the gist of it. So it was very easy for Pentax. All they had to do was order some of these monochrome sensors and change a little bit of the programming and drop them right in the K3 Mark III. So it was kind of a no-brainer for Pentax. It was really easy for them to do. And they figured it was very low-hanging fruit, and they said, let's just do that. So with the GR3, they would have had to order a sensor and pay for the, you know, get it to, you know, this was already, the K3 monochrome uses an off-the-shelf sensor, from what I understand. Reduces the production costs significantly. And so that's why they did it. And good for them for doing it. So that's another thing. Now, for me, it creates a lot of problems because the camera is not the easiest to shoot with. Again, my glasses are a problem. With an SLR, I love the SLR viewfinder, but it's a little bit less convenient. I mean, it's not as inconvenient as a view camera, as a 4x5 film camera, right? But it is not as convenient as a mirrorless camera. Also, the lack of the flipping screen creates issues for me. And I have to think about a video camera. So incorporating this into my system is going to be a problem. I've been thinking about it, you know, now that I know that I want to shoot with this camera. So what do I need in my bag when I go out if I'm bringing a monochrome K3 Mark III? Well, I need the lenses for it. That's number one. Number two, I need a color option. So is that another K3 Mark III? Is that a K1 Mark II? Possibly. Is it a Fuji camera and get an adapter? If I use a Fuji camera, then I need more lenses. And what am I going to do for video? Because the Pentax video options are limited. You know, the K3 Mark III is a mediocre video camera. The monochrome only gives me monochrome videos. But if I got another K3 Mark III, it's a very mediocre video camera. It has, I mean, I'd have to use an external monitor I mean, because it doesn't even flip up to use that goofy mirror thing. So, and it's not the greatest video in the world. And it's a 1.5 crop on top of the 1.5 crop. So there's a lot of issues to work through. But, you know, again, this camera is a one-hit wonder. And the results have to justify the complete disruption to my system. And the fact that it does one thing and it doesn't do video, it doesn't do color, it's an SLR, etc., etc. Like it requires me to really change a lot of what I'm doing in order to incorporate this camera. But what I'm saying is, from the results I'm seeing so far, again, I mean, it really comes down to, now that I know that this is possible, now that I know that this camera can do this, I don't want to shoot black and white on a color sensor and convert it anymore. Like I will feel like I'm leaving a lot on the table. Like, you know, I mean, so I don't know. I don't know where my system's going. This has really disrupted everything, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it or how I'm going to proceed. I might pick up a K1 Mark II and then the lenses. So I only have one set of lenses, but then I need some kind of a video camera. That might be a Nikon Z30, believe it or not. So, I mean, I got the GoPro, but that's kind of a lousy video camera for a main video camera. So I'm not sure how this is all going to pan out, but I do know that so far, preliminarily, the K3 Mark III monochrome does something that, other than a $10,000 Leica, no other camera does, no other digital camera does that I'm aware of. And yeah, it's not a joke. If you're really serious about black and white and want that nth degree of quality, if you want to shoot real black and white digitally and not a computer simulation of black and white, K3 Mark III is the only affordable game in town, and it's kind of worth it. It is to me, I think, so far. So subject to change depending upon what the next few weeks reveal, but right off the bat, yeah, I'm seeing a huge difference. And, you know, well, not huge in the sense that, you know, it's 2 or 3 strokes in golf, but I'm seeing, you know, winning the Masters versus coming in 4th place, okay? And there's a huge difference there, right? Hey, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I have no idea where I'm going with this, but we shall see. But I'm really glad I tried this camera. It's really exciting, and it's really fascinating what a difference it makes. So there it is. We'll see you out there. Have a great one. Bye.